How's the week been after such a brutal game and even the heavy game the week before? You don't get much into it.
Yeah, we recovered pretty well early in the week, and we had a good hit out this morning. The energy levels were up, so I feel like we've recovered quite well.
It's a big session for you this morning, wasn't it? Finding out who was going to be available. Did Jared get through?
No,
Berry?
Jared Berry won't be right this week, so he's not available.
What's his issue there exactly, Jared?
Oh, he's got groin soreness, so it's sort of those non-specific things that just takes time. So you've got to go on how people feel. So that's where it's at the moment.
So you're just putting like an indefinite on him as sort of like if next week he feels better, it's like, all right, we go with it? Or?
Yeah, I think he's hopeful that he gets moving again next week. That's the plan, but we'll just wait and see. I stopped asking the medical guys because it's just one of those things. It's a day-to-day injury.
It's sort of new territory this year, isn't it, having to deal with so many injuries early in the season? How are you handling that constant sort of unknown each week?
Yeah, I actually think it's good for us. We've had a couple of years where we haven't had a lot of injury and we've had really strong, consistent form, so we've never had to change our team a great deal. What's happening now is other players are getting an opportunity, and we need to build our depth. And you only really find out about players if they get the chance to play AFL. And so I see this period of time as one where we can build that depth and discover some more players that can actually help us in what we want to do down the track.
Reece Mathieson, one of those players?
Yeah, Reece has been knocking on the door for 2 years, I reckon, to be fair. He's had an amazing attitude. He's been a great leader in amongst our reserves players, so he's right in the frame.
How that win on the weekend, I don't like to go back too far, but a win like that, given the circumstances and the injuries and just the brutality of it, like how big is that for a team just trying to, like you say, see who's next come off the rank?
Yeah, well, look, I think our players were proud of their effort, and it does give them a lot of confidence, particularly on the road. There wasn't anything in our favour really on Friday night, and the boys were able to find a way. But the competition moves on. You can't sort of sit back and pat yourself on the back for too long about that, because we've got Port Adelaide coming up on Saturday night, and they're arguably the most informed team in the competition. So that's a big job for us to look forward to, and that's what we've had our focus on this week.
Do you feel like you're getting closer to your best footy, or closer to it?
Well, we've played really well the last couple of weeks, it's be fair to say. But it all depends on the opposition. When the better teams tend to play against each other, the games don't always end up beautiful games of football. They're tough, hard contests that you have to scrap and fight to win. So I think it's going to be a little bit wet on Saturday night, so it may well be one of those sort of games.
With these youngsters coming in, do you prefer to blood them against tough opposition to get them straight, or would you rather against the weaker teams to blood them in? What's your sort of preference?
No, you don't get a choice on it anyway. But no, I think sometimes a baptismal fire is really good. So, but we never get to choose. So that's probably a question that I've never thought a great deal about, to be honest.
You said you just can't spend a lot of time patting yourselves on the back, doing a good job. How long do you spend, or how long did it take to get over the fact that you've lost Lockie for a fair bit?
I suppose for me, this sounds a bit harsh, but the minute I got the call on Sunday to say that Lockie was going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, I started thinking straight away about who's going to take his place and how we're going to go about it. Sort of like you haven't got time to sort of dwell on those sorts of things. It's a fact of the game. Every side in the competition's got good players out at the moment, not just us. So if you want to be any good, you just got to deal with those sorts of things.
Are you surprised how serious the injury was, considering how well he played on?
Oh, the nature of the injury, a syndesmosis to the ankle, is you can actually you can run straight lines reasonably well. It's when you've got to change direction that there's a bit of a problem. So that's why he was able to keep going, pretty much because he could still run reasonably well. It was just if he had to quickly change, that was a problem to him. Although he did that a couple of times, which just goes to show you how brave he is, because that would have hurt.
Port are a team that like to smell a bit of blood in the water. They play a very aggressive style, considering the heavy load of the last 2 games, and particularly the sort of battered nature of the team over the weekend. Expecting them to bring a more intense approach in that area?
They might, but we're not battered. we were battered on Saturday night in the game, and we were a bit sore the next day. But we've recovered well. We're ready to go again. So we don't feel like we're sort of just hanging in there because we've had a couple of hard weeks. We believe that we're fit and ready to go. So if they think that, then that's what they think. We have no control over it.
More of the same from Port this year that you've seen that they've done well the last few years, or is there's obviously a few personnel changes there? What have you noticed?
Yeah, look, they're an incredibly well-rounded side. You know, they're good at contested ball. They move the ball really well. They defend well. You know, other than the one loss that they had this year against West Coast, their form's been impeccable. So, and they're experienced. So, you know, you've got to be on your game to beat them. We think we have the capacity to do that, but we need to play really well.
Your flexibility's going to have to come into play, isn't it, this week? Because you lost Darcy as well, haven't you? So you've got to find another defender.
Yeah, so we're having a bit of a think about that. Who we select might depend a little bit on what the weather's going to do as well. And Port Adelaide have got a lot of good small forwards as well. So, you know, whether we go for a like-for-like replacement for Darcy or whether we go for a smaller defender, that's the discussion that we'll have this afternoon at match committee.
Just on their small forwards, they've got an extra one this year in Fantasia. How dangerous or how much attention are you paying to that part of the ground for them?
Well, that's, you know, it's a very strong scoring source for them. You know, Motlop, Fantasia, Connor Rosie, you know, Butters when he plays, Robbie Gray. It's a talented group of small forwards, but you know, you can't just rely on the ability of your defenders to be able to get the job on those guys done one-on-one. It's trying to win territory ourselves. It's the way that they're able to move the ball down the ground. If they can move it quickly, it'll bring those players into play. If they can't, then it'll be a bit tougher for them. So it's about the way the whole team defends.
Just have one more on an injury front. Noah Answorth is listed as a groin injury.
Yeah, he's a little bit the same as Jared Berry, I guess. He's back running again, and it's just session by session how they pull up, and I've got no sort of time frame as to when he'll return either.
Is Reece most likely to come into Lockie? Is that the...
Yeah, it's the most likely one because he's been the guy that's in the best form. So that's probably the way that we're seeing it at the moment, particularly with Jared Berry not being right.
Is everyone... I'm just trying to think. I mean, Mitch looks bad with his eye, but he's fine to...
Everybody's fine. They're all superficial injuries.
Yeah.
The only blokes that had... You know, Lockie's the only guy that's had a really serious injury, and you know, if the previous concussion rules were in place, Darcy would be playing this week, but they're not, and they're not in place for good reason. We accept that, but he's actually made a great recovery from the head knock.